Most of the ocean is empty. That's the first thing I want you to understand before we begin this video. People imagine the sea as one giant connected world, full of life, full of fish, beautiful coral reefs and curious dolphins and busy schools of silver bodies swimming in every direction. But that's not the truth. The vast majority of the ocean is empty, cold, dark, hostile, or just so violent that almost nothing can live there. And scattered across that emptiness are something I want to show you today. I call them forbidden zones. These are the corners of the ocean where almost nothing survives. Places where the rules of normal life break down, where pressure crushes, where darkness erases, where geometry traps, where chaos kills. If a human were dropped into any one of these places, without protection, they wouldn't last more than a few minutes. In some of them, only a few seconds. These are the parts of the ocean we don't really talk about. The kind of places we instinctively avoid even thinking about. The cold ones, the dark ones, the crushing ones. The places where nothing should be alive. And yet, somehow, in every single one of these zones, something is. A creature that not only survives there, but dominates there. A creature that has evolved over millions of years to belong in a place that would kill almost anything else. That's what this documentary is about. 8 forbidden zones, 8 different ways the ocean kills, and 8 animals that have figured out how to live where life is supposed to be impossible. Some of these creatures, you'll know. Some, you've probably never thought about. But every single one of them is doing something in their forbidden zone that I genuinely think will change how you see the ocean. There's a whale that hunts in total darkness, 2 miles below the surface, fighting giants in a place no human will ever see. There's a predator hiding in plain sight in the most beautiful, warm, shallow water on Earth, carrying the deadliest venom in the sea. There's an animal that lives in liquid blindness, hunting with senses we don't have. And there's a fish that has built its entire existence around the idea that the most dangerous places in the ocean are the ones that look the safest. I made this video because I think people misunderstand the ocean. We see it as a peaceful, beautiful, gentle blue space. But the truth is, the ocean is full of zones we are not invited into. Zones written in physics, in pressure, in darkness, in violence. The animals that live in those zones don't see them as forbidden, they see them as home. By the end of this video, I think you'll understand why. Quick favor before we start. This channel is something I work on alone. Every like, every subscribe, every comment genuinely matters. If you enjoy long ocean documentaries like this one, hit subscribe. And tell me in the comments along the way, which forbidden zone unsettles you the most? All right. Grab a coffee, get comfortable. Welcome to Do Not Enter. Let's go into the ocean's most hostile places and meet the creatures who live there. I want you to imagine something with me. You're floating on the surface of the open ocean. The water is warm. The sun is on your face. You feel safe. Now look down. You can see maybe 10 or 15 meters into the blue beneath you. Beyond that, just darkness. What you're looking at, that empty dark column going straight down, is over 3,000 meters deep. 3,000 meters. Almost 2 miles of water beneath your feet. Pure black. Crushing cold. Pressure that would collapse your lungs in seconds. If a human tried to descend down there without protection, they'd be dead before reaching even 100 meters. Their eardrums would burst. Their lungs would compress. Their consciousness would fade. This is the first forbidden zone in this video. Almost nothing can survive down there. Almost nothing. Because there's one creature, one massive, ancient, almost supernatural creature that doesn't just visit this zone, it rules it. The sperm whale. The sperm whale is the largest predator on Earth. Larger than any shark. Larger than anything else that hunts living prey anywhere on this planet. Adult males can reach 20 meters, about the length of a school bus. They can weigh up to 57 tons. Their massive square heads make up a third of their entire body length. But size isn't what makes them strange. What makes them strange is what they do with that body. A sperm whale surfaces, takes one single breath, and then it dives. Straight down, tail to the sky, falling into the dark like a torpedo aimed at the center of the Earth. For the next 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer, that whale will not breathe. It will descend to depths of 1,000, 2,000, or even over 3,000 meters. It will hunt in absolute darkness. It will fight monsters most humans don't even believe are real. And then it will return to the surface, breathe, and do it all over again. Some sperm whales spend 75% of their entire existence below the layer where any sunlight reaches. They surface only briefly, to breathe, then return to the abyss. To them, the deep isn't a place they visit, it's home. How is this even possible? The pressure alone should kill them. At 2,000 meters, the pressure is roughly 200 times what you're feeling right now. The weight of all that water, pressing on every square centimeter of a body, would be like having a mountain sitting on top of you. So how does the whale not get crushed? It does something incredible. When the sperm whale dives, its lungs collapse, on purpose. They squeeze flat, stop functioning. The whale shuts them down, because oxygen at depth would actually become toxic to the whale's nervous system. So, evolution found a brilliant solution. Store the oxygen elsewhere, where pressure can't turn it dangerous. The whale's blood and muscles become a biological scuba tank. Specialized proteins lock the oxygen in until it's needed. The whale's heart slows down to as low as 3 beats per minute. Blood flow is rerouted away from non-essential organs. Every system in its body switches into deep dive mode and stays there for hours. It's the most extreme physiological transformation of any mammal on Earth. And the sperm whale does it casually, every day, for its entire life. But surviving the pressure is only half the challenge. The other half is finding food in absolute darkness. At the depths, a sperm whale hunts. There is no light. None. Zero. Total black. So the whale doesn't use its eyes. It hunts with sound. That massive square head. For centuries, humans hunted these whales just to extract a strange waxy substance inside it. They thought it was a biological accident. It wasn't. That entire head is a natural sonar device, the most powerful biological acoustic system in the animal kingdom. The sperm whale produces clicks so loud, 230 decibels, that they're the loudest sound made by any living animal on Earth. Louder than a jet engine, louder than a gunshot. Some scientists believe the whale uses these clicks to stun its prey before striking. Sound powerful enough to incapacitate a giant squid, a creature that hunts with weaponized sound, in total darkness, 2 miles below the surface. If I described this to you and didn't tell you it was real, you'd think I was describing a sea monster from mythology. But the sperm whale is real. It's swimming around our oceans right now. It's been doing all of this for millions of years. And what is it hunting down there? The giant squid and the colossal squid. Creatures we used to think were sailor legends. They're real. The colossal squid can grow over 13 meters long. It has eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes in the entire animal kingdom. Its tentacles are armed with rotating hooks that latch into flesh and refuse to let go. When a sperm whale dives into the dark and finds a colossal squid, it isn't an easy meal, it's a fight. Sperm whales return to the surface covered in circular scars, perfect rings imprinted on their skin where giant squid suckers grip them. Some sperm whales have hundreds of these scars. Some have scars from hooks. Some have scars from tentacles wrapped completely around their heads. 2 of the largest creatures on Earth, battling each other, in total darkness, 2 miles down, where no human will ever witness it. There's something almost mythological about it. We aren't really supposed to know this is happening. The fact that we do, through scars and occasional carcasses, feels almost like overhearing the secrets of another planet. But here's what makes the sperm whale even more extraordinary. It doesn't survive the abyss alone. Sperm whales have families. Like orcas, they live in matrilineal groups. Mothers, daughters, aunts, grandmothers. The males eventually leave to roam alone, but the females stay together for life, and they have language. Sperm whales communicate with patterned sequences of clicks called codas. Different family groups have different codas, like dialects. Scientists have identified roughly a dozen sperm whale clans worldwide, each one with its own dialect, its own identity, its own cultural traditions. There's a project right now called Project SETI. using AI to attempt to decode sperm whale language, to translate it, to finally understand what they're saying to each other. In our lifetime, we may actually start to hear what they've been talking about all this time. A creature that hunts in total darkness, miles below the surface, in a place no human can reach, and has a language, and families, and culture. Right now, somewhere in the deep ocean, a sperm whale is descending. Its head is angled downward. Its tail is high. Its blowhole has finished its final breath. For the next hour, it will fall through layers of darkness most of us will never see. Past zones of pressure that would shred a human body, into a place where its only senses are sound and instinct. Somewhere in that darkness, a colossal squid is waiting. Maybe today they'll meet. Maybe today there will be a new scar to add to the whale's skin. Either way, the whale will return. Surface. Breathe. Speak in clicks we can't yet decode. And dive again. It will do this for the rest of its life. For up to 70 years. To us, the deep ocean is the most hostile place on Earth. To the sperm whale, it's just where it lives. I want to start this chapter with a thought experiment. Imagine you've just come up from a deep, dark place. The kind of place we explored in the last chapter. Pressure, cold, total black. The kind of forbidden zone where you can clearly see why nothing should survive there. Now imagine the opposite. Bright, sunlit, warm, shallow water, coral and sand and tropical fish. The kind of place that looks like a screensaver. Safe, right? That's what I want to challenge in this chapter. Because there is another kind of forbidden zone in our oceans. And it doesn't look forbidden at all. It looks beautiful, calm, inviting. But in this zone, your eyes lie to you. The ground beneath your feet isn't what it appears. Predators don't hide from you. They hide as you. As coral, as sand, as shadow, as nothing at all. This is the reef flat, the shallow coastal zone where sunlight hits the seafloor and creates a chaos of shifting light, moving shadows, and broken patterns. And in this zone, there is a creature that has weaponized the very idea of reality itself, the cuttlefish. By the end of this chapter, I think you'll never look at shallow water the same way again. Because what I'm about to describe, it isn't just camouflage. It's something much darker. It's the corruption of perception. Let me set the scene. Picture yourself swimming in clear, shallow water, maybe waist deep. You can see the bottom perfectly. Sand, coral rubble, patches of algae, small fish darting around. You stop and look at a particular patch of sand. There's nothing unusual there. Just rocks, bits of broken shell, a small clump of seaweed. You're certain nothing is there. Then the sand moves. Not the way sand moves in a current. The way an animal moves. A pair of eyes appears where there were no eyes. A body emerges from what you thought was rock. 8 arms uncurl from what you assumed was algae. And suddenly, you're staring at a creature that was watching you the entire time. And you had no idea. You walked past it. You looked directly at it. You scanned that exact spot. Your eyes simply refused to register it. That's the cuttlefish. And honestly, when you really sit with what this animal can do, it's one of the most quietly terrifying creatures in the ocean. Now I know what you might be thinking. We talked about cuttlefish in my last documentary, the intelligent ones with the living screen. But in this video, we're not talking about their intelligence. We're talking about what they do to a specific kind of habitat, a specific kind of zone, and why that zone, beautiful as it looks, is a place where almost nothing survives if it relies on its eyes to stay alive. The reef flat isn't dangerous because of predators chasing prey. It's dangerous because of invisibility. And the cuttlefish is the master of that invisibility. Here's what most people don't understand about the reef flat. When you look at shallow ocean water from above, it seems simple. Sand, coral, maybe some fish. But at the actual scale of the seafloor, at eye level with the creatures living there, It's a nightmare of visual chaos. Sunlight passes through the rippling water surface and breaks into moving stripes. Those stripes crawl across the bottom constantly. Every wave on the surface creates a new pattern. Every cloud passing overhead changes the lighting. Every fish that swims by stirs up sediment. The reef flat is a flickering screen of constantly shifting light and dark. In a habitat like this, having a fixed shape is a liability. Any creature with a consistent outline becomes visible against the moving background. Anything that doesn't shift and adapt gets eaten. So evolution did something incredible on these reef flats. It created predators that don't have a consistent shape at all. They have no fixed identity. Their bodies are tools, instruments tuned to the chaos around them. They don't fight the visual storm. They become it. Watch what a cuttlefish does when it enters this environment. Within a single second of touching down on the sand, its skin completely transforms. The color of the seafloor? Matched. The pattern of light flickering across the substrate? Matched. The texture of coral rubble nearby? Matched. Even the movement of the surrounding water, the way shadows shift and bend. The cuttlefish synchronizes with it. Its skin doesn't just change color, it projects a moving image of the surrounding terrain, as if it's running a high-resolution screensaver of whatever is around it, but in real time, on its own body, with no buffering. And here's the part that quietly haunts me. Other reef creatures, fish, crabs, shrimp, cannot see it. Their visual systems literally cannot process the cuttlefish as a separate object. The cuttlefish's body falls below their threshold of perception. To their eyes, the cuttlefish doesn't exist. They will walk right up to it, graze near it, pass over it. And the moment they get within striking range, the sand explodes into limbs and the prey is gone. Imagine being eaten by something you literally couldn't see. Not because it was hidden, because your own eyes refused to admit it was there. That's what happens on the reef flat every single day. Thousands of times. Most of the small creatures that live in shallow water die without ever seeing the predator that killed them. Now I want to share something that, when I learned about it, made me genuinely uncomfortable. The cuttlefish doesn't just hide from its prey, it hides from their specific kind of vision. Different reef animals see the world differently. Some see color the way we do. Some see only black and white. Some see polarized light, a property of light most of us don't even perceive. The cuttlefish adapts its camouflage based on what kind of eyes are watching it. If a predator that sees polarized light approaches, the cuttlefish shifts its skin's polarization pattern. If a predator that sees only contrast approaches, the cuttlefish reduces its contrast. If a predator with motion-sensitive vision approaches, the cuttlefish freezes in synchronization with the moving light around it. It's not generic camouflage. It's customized, tailored to whoever is watching. The cuttlefish has read your visual system, understood how your eyes work, and specifically tricked them. That's not survival instinct. That's surveillance. That's intelligence. It's the difference between hiding in a shadow and being the shadow that your specific brain happens to ignore. But the cuttlefish does something even more disturbing. When it can't hide anymore, when a predator gets too close to ignore, the cuttlefish doesn't run. It does the opposite. It suddenly becomes terrifying. In a single instant, the cuttlefish abandons camouflage and floods its body with patterns designed to look like the most dangerous things in the ocean. Huge eye spots bloom across its skin, making it look like a face much larger than its real body. Its arms flare outward and webbing extends, doubling its apparent size. Pulses of dark and light flash across its mantle in rapid waves, mimicking the electrical pulses of a much bigger predator. To the approaching reef fish, what was just a patch of sand a moment ago has now become a massive, alien, threatening creature with strobing colors and giant eyes. The fish panics, veers away, survives, for now. The cuttlefish goes back to looking like sand. In 2 seconds it went from invisible to nightmare, and then back to invisible again, like a small ocean horror that briefly flickers into existence before disappearing. How do you defend yourself against something like that? You can't. Most things that try to mess with a cuttlefish never get a chance to learn the lesson twice. Here's something else that quietly fascinates me about the cuttlefish. Different sides of its body can display different patterns at the same time. Think about that for a second. If you have a cuttlefish in front of you, the left side of its body might be displaying camouflage, completely blending into the seafloor. The right side might be displaying aggressive warning patterns, bright stripes, flashing colors. Two completely different visual messages from a single body, simultaneously. It does this during mating. The male cuttlefish often has a rival to deceive and a female to impress, and the two are on opposite sides of him. So the cuttlefish literally splits his appearance. He shows the male side of himself to the female, and the female side of himself to the rival, so the rival ignores him. I had to read that twice when I first learned it, because the level of social complexity required to even want to do something like that, let alone be physically capable of it, is something we usually associate with mammals, maybe primates. The cuttlefish does it casually, every mating season. There is no other animal on Earth that lies with both sides of its body in different ways at the same time. It's one of the strangest, most calculated forms of communication in the animal kingdom. And then there's the most disturbing part of this story. The cuttlefish has only 1 year of life, maybe 2 in some species. That's it. Every cuttlefish you've ever seen in a video, every cuttlefish that ever fooled a predator, every cuttlefish that ever performed the split-body mating display, every one of them, gone within a year or 2. All of that intelligence, all of that sophistication, all of that visual genius, compressed into a lifespan shorter than a goldfish. And here's what makes it almost tragic. A cuttlefish has to figure out everything it does, from scratch, in just 1 year. It learns the patterns, the illusions, the body language, the hunting techniques, the mating behavior, all of it. And then it dies. The next generation has to learn it all over again, from zero. For a creature with such an extraordinary mind, there's no time to accumulate wisdom, no long childhood, no elders to teach. Each cuttlefish is a brilliant flash, a year-long flame of intelligence, then darkness. It makes me wonder what a cuttlefish would do with a longer life, what it could become if it had decades instead of months. We will probably never know. The ocean made the cuttlefish too bright to last. I want to talk about something that I think doesn't get enough attention. The reef flat. The shallow, sunlit, beautiful-looking zone where the cuttlefish lives is one of the most rapidly disappearing habitats on Earth. Coastal development, pollution, coral bleaching, climate change. All of it hits reef flats first and hardest. When coral dies and reefs simplify, the visual complexity that the cuttlefish needs to hide in starts to disappear. The flickering screen flattens. The chaos that allows it to vanish vanishes. In dead, simplified reefs, the cuttlefish suddenly becomes visible. Predators that used to walk right past it can now see it clearly. The illusion that took millions of years to evolve just stops working. We are not killing the cuttlefish directly, but by destroying the reef flats, we are slowly removing the conditions that allow it to exist at all. It's like erasing a magician's stage. The magician doesn't lose their abilities. They just lose the place where those abilities work. In a degraded ocean, the cuttlefish has nowhere to disappear into. The visual genius of the reef flat is being unmade, not by another predator, not by competition, by us. So let me bring this chapter back to where we started. You're swimming in shallow, sunlit water, the kind of place that looks safe, beautiful, inviting. But now you know what's happening down there. Patterns of light flickering across sand, coral rubble shifting in the surge, algae waving in the current. And somewhere, within a meter or 2 of you, there's almost certainly a cuttlefish, watching, reading your visual system, calculating which version of itself to display, deciding whether you're a threat, knowing things about your eyes that you don't know about your own eyes. You won't see it. Even if you stare directly at it, you won't see it. That's the nature of the shifting camouflage zone. The reef flat isn't dangerous because of obvious predators. It's dangerous because perception itself becomes unreliable. The ground lies to you. The shadows lie to you. The coral lies to you. In this zone, the laws of vision break down. And somewhere in that broken visual world, an animal with the brain of a small primate is using its skin to manipulate everything you can see. It survives by making reality negotiable. The cuttlefish, the master of the edit, the architect of doubt, a reminder that the most dangerous zones aren't always the dark ones. Sometimes they're the bright ones, where everything looks safe and your own eyes betray you. Sometimes the most forbidden place in the ocean is the one you're already swimming in, without knowing it.
I want you to do something with me for a moment. Close your eyes. Well, after you finish reading this paragraph, and try to imagine the open ocean.
Not a coral reef, not a beach, the actual open sea, hundreds of kilometers from land, just blue in every direction all the way down. When most people picture this, they imagine emptiness. A vast, peaceful, almost boring blue. Maybe a few fish here and there, but mostly empty. I'm here to tell you the open ocean is one of the strangest, most deceptive places on this planet. Because what looks empty isn't empty at all. And what looks safe isn't safe either. The open ocean is a forbidden zone of a completely different kind. Not because of darkness, like the abyss. Not because of crushing pressure. Not because of invisibility, like the reef flat. The open ocean is forbidden because of scale. It's too big to navigate, too big to find food in, too big to find safety in. Anything small enough to live there can't fight currents that span entire ocean basins. Anything large enough to survive there has to travel vast distances just to eat. Most creatures simply can't live out there. The ocean is too dispersed, too thin, too dilute. And yet, every once in a while, the ocean does something extraordinary. It folds in on itself. Currents collide. Nutrients rise from the deep. And in narrow ribbons of water, far from any shore, life concentrates. These ribbons are called convergence zones, or more poetically, plankton funnels. They are temporary. They appear and disappear. They drift across the open sea following invisible patterns of physics. They are some of the most fragile, most beautiful, and most violent places in the entire ocean. And there is one creature on Earth that has built its entire existence around finding them. The manta ray. A creature with wings as wide as a small airplane, a brain larger than any other fish in the sea, and one of the most graceful and quietly tragic survival strategies I've ever come across. Let me show you what I mean. A manta ray is enormous. Some of them have wingspans of 7 meters. The largest can weigh over a ton. They look like something out of a fantasy painting, dark on top, white on the bottom, gliding through the water with a kind of slow, deliberate elegance that feels almost ceremonial. But here's the thing that makes the manta ray strange. This massive animal, one of the largest fish in the entire ocean, eats some of the smallest things in the entire ocean. It eats plankton, microscopic creatures barely visible to the human eye. Tiny crustaceans, fish larvae, drifting eggs, gelatinous zooplankton, most of them less than a few millimeters across. So picture this, a creature the size of a small car, cruising through the open sea, eating creatures the size of a grain of sand. How does that math work? It works because the manta has solved one of the hardest problems in nature. How to feed on something extremely small when it's spread across an extremely large area. The answer is, don't chase the food. Let the ocean chase it for you. This is where the plankton funnel zone comes in. When certain currents collide in the open ocean, when wind, tide, and underwater topography align just right, they create invisible streams of compressed water. These streams aren't visible from a boat. They're not visible from a plane. You can't taste them, see them, or feel them. But if you're plankton, you feel them. Brutally. Everything floating in the water gets pulled toward these convergence points. Microscopic creatures that were spread out across kilometers of ocean suddenly get compressed into ribbons just a few meters wide. What was diffuse becomes dense. What was scattered becomes a river of life, a river of food, suspended in the middle of the open ocean, drifting along invisible boundaries. And the manta ray has somehow learned to find these rivers. Let me describe what feeding actually looks like for a manta. The ray glides into the funnel zone slowly. There's no urgency, no rush. The plankton isn't going anywhere. The currents are concentrating it faster than the manta could ever catch up to it. As the ray approaches, two fleshy structures unfurl from either side of its head. These are called cephalic lobes. They look like horns. People used to think they were just decorative. They're not. They're hydrodynamic instruments. The cephalic lobes curl forward and create a kind of funnel of their own, channeling water and plankton directly into the manta's massive mouth as it swims. The lobes literally redirect the flow of the ocean into the ray's body. This is one of the most elegant feeding mechanisms in nature. The manta isn't eating with its teeth. It isn't sucking water in like a whale. It's basically a giant living colander, letting the ocean do the work. The water flows in. The plankton gets trapped on specialized gill rakers inside the manta's throat. The clean water flows out through the gills. The manta keeps gliding, and it does this for hours sometimes. Slow, looping figure eights through the densest parts of the plankton stream, each loop bringing it back through the richest waters. Each pass collecting thousands more microscopic organisms. When several mantas find the same funnel, they line up. Literally line up, one behind the other, each one feeding through the funnel in sequence. They call this chain feeding. It's one of the most beautiful things in the ocean to watch. A train of giants, gliding silently in formation, harvesting an invisible river of life that nobody on the surface can see. But here's where this chapter gets darker, because for everything else in that funnel zone, it's a death trap. I want you to think about this from the perspective of a single plankton creature, maybe a fish larva, a few days old, almost transparent, barely able to swim, drifting peacefully in open water. Suddenly the water around it changes. The current speeds up. It starts pulling. Things start moving faster around it. Other creatures are tumbling past, all going in the same direction. The larva can't fight it. It's too small. The current is too strong. It's been captured by the funnel. It's now traveling at high speed in a narrowing ribbon of water, surrounded by thousands of other helpless creatures, all being compressed into the same stream. Sunlight refracts strangely through the dense water. Other animals, bigger ones, start to appear at the edges of the funnel. Tuna slashing through from below, seabirds diving in from above, sharks circling at the boundaries, and then a darkness above. A vast, soft shadow blocks the sun, wings as wide as a building, and a mouth, a massive, gaping, open mouth, moving directly along the current line, coming toward the larva, closer, closer, until it isn't. The funnel zone isn't a feeding ground. Not really. For the small things, the convergence zone is a meat grinder, a river they can't escape, a trap built by physics itself. They didn't choose to be there. The ocean dragged them in, and once they're in, there's no swimming out. This is what fascinates me about the plankton funnel zone. It's a forbidden region you can't see, you can't predict, you can't avoid. If you're tiny enough that currents control your life, you're at the mercy of whichever current sweeps you up next. Most of the time, that current leads to dispersal and survival. But sometimes, it leads here, to the funnel, to the giants. And there's no way to know in advance which current is which. I think about that sometimes, about how much of life, for the smallest creatures in the ocean, is just chance. Whether a tiny shift in wind on a sunny day decides whether you live another week or get swept into a manta's mouth tomorrow. It's not predation in the traditional sense. The manta isn't hunting you. It doesn't even know you're an individual. To the manta, you are simply part of the water. That somehow feels worse than being hunted. But here's where the manta's story takes a turn I really want you to think about. The manta ray is not stupid. Far from it. Manta rays have the largest brain of any fish on Earth. Larger than sharks. Larger than tuna. Larger, relative to body size, than almost any other marine creature. And they use that brain in extraordinary ways. Manta rays can recognize themselves in mirrors. They pass the same self-awareness test that dolphins, orcas, elephants, and humans pass. Most animals fail this test. The manta passes it easily. They navigate across entire ocean basins to find feeding grounds. They remember the locations of cleaning stations they visited years ago. They form long-term relationships with other manta rays. And here's something I find genuinely beautiful. Manta rays seem to be curious about humans. Divers who spend time around mantas often describe the same experience. The manta will approach them, slowly, calmly, pass within arm's reach, and then roll over, showing its belly. In manta ray body language, this rolling over behavior is the same gesture they make when they're being cleaned by smaller fish. It's a sign of trust, of comfort, of acceptance. A wild 2-ton ocean creature voluntarily approaching a human, slowing down and rolling onto its back, basically saying, "I see you. I'm not afraid of you. You're welcome here." Few experiences in the ocean compare to that, according to people who've had it. There is someone behind the manta's eyes, someone aware, someone thoughtful, someone choosing how to interact with the world. Now I have to share something with you that I find genuinely sad. The plankton funnel zones, those invisible rivers in the open ocean, also concentrate something else. Plastic. Every piece of microplastic floating in the ocean follows the same physical laws as plankton. The same currents that compress nutrients into ribbons also compress garbage into those same ribbons. Which means when a manta ray opens its mouth to feed, it doesn't just take in plankton. It takes in everything else floating in that water. Microplastics, fishing line fragments, synthetic fibers, chemical pollutants that have bound to surfaces of organic matter. The manta's filter system can't tell the difference between a copepod and a piece of microplastic the same size. It eats both. Studies have begun finding plastic in the digestive tracts of wild manta rays. Sometimes a lot of it. The same feeding strategy that took millions of years to perfect, sweeping the open ocean for tiny food, now sweeps up our garbage too. The manta doesn't know. It's just doing what evolution designed it to do. And we keep making the oceans smaller and dirtier with each passing year. In 100 years, there may be no more manta rays feeding in convergence zones. Not because we hunted them, not because their habitat disappeared, but because the rivers of life they evolved to find are now also rivers of plastic. The funnel kills them now, slowly, from the inside. There's another threat too. In many parts of the world, manta rays are hunted. Not for food, mostly. For their gill plates, the same filtration structures they use to feed. These gill plates are sold in some traditional medicine markets, despite zero scientific evidence that they have any medicinal value at all. The price has risen sharply in recent decades. A single manta ray, killed for its gill plates, can sell for hundreds of dollars in some markets. But here's the cruel math. A living manta ray, swimming peacefully near a tourism site, can generate over $1 million in tourism revenue over its lifetime. People travel from across the planet to swim with mantas. Entire economies on small islands have been built around manta ecotourism. Killed, hundreds. Alive, millions. And yet, in many parts of the world, mantas are still being slaughtered for an outdated belief that has no scientific basis. Slowly, the population is shrinking. Some species of manta are now considered endangered. This animal, with the largest brain of any fish, capable of self-awareness, capable of recognizing individual humans, capable of curiosity and trust, is being killed for nothing. It's one of those facts that I think more people should know, because it's not too late. Mantas are protected in more countries every year. Anti-poaching efforts are growing. There's still time to save them. But the clock is running. So here's what I want to leave you with. The open ocean, that empty-looking blue that covers most of our planet, isn't empty. It's full of invisible rivers, currents you can't see, convergence zones that appear and disappear, pockets of life that materialize for a few hours, then dissolve back into emptiness. In one of those rivers, somewhere right now, a manta ray is gliding, wings stretched wide, cephalic lobes curled forward, mouth open, brain processing, eyes scanning. It's doing exactly what it has done for millions of years, finding the river, riding the river, letting the river feed it. And while it glides, somewhere in its enormous mind, it might be remembering the locations of past funnels, the faces of past divers, other mantas it has known, cleaning stations from years ago, migration routes its mother taught it. There's a presence behind those eyes. We're only beginning to understand it. The Plankton funnel is one of the strangest places on Earth. A river without banks, a trap for the smallest creatures, a feast for the largest, a place where life and death are decided by physics. Not skill, not strength, not luck. It's a forbidden zone for almost every animal that lives in the ocean. But to the manta ray, it's the most beautiful place in the world, even with the plastic, even with the loss, even now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been snorkeling, or scuba diving, or just floating in a beautiful tropical lagoon, somewhere warm, somewhere where the water is bright turquoise and the coral comes up to within a meter of the surface? If you have, you know what I'm talking about. That feeling of paradise, the sun above, the reef below, tiny fish weaving between coral branches, light dancing across the sand. It's the kind of place that, more than anywhere else in the world, makes the ocean feel safe. Now I have to tell you something that's going to be hard to hear if you love those places. In some of the most beautiful tropical reefs on Earth, swimming silently between the coral branches you're admiring, sliding through the same warm corridors you're snorkeling through, is one of the most venomous animals on the planet. You won't see it coming. You probably won't see it at all. And the only reason most snorkelers and divers don't get bitten by it is because, mercifully, this animal doesn't want anything to do with us. This is the sea snake, the hidden predator of the warm reef, the silent occupant of paradise, and in many ways, the strangest entry in this entire documentary. Let me explain why. First, let me make sure we understand what a sea snake actually is, because most people get this wrong. A sea snake is not an eel. It's a real snake, like the kind that lives in your garden. Lungs, scales, forked tongue, the whole thing. But somewhere along the evolutionary road, millions of years ago, the ancestors of sea snakes did something incredible. They went back to the ocean. Snakes evolved from ancient reptiles that originally crawled out of the sea. Their ancestors fought hard to escape water and conquer land. And then, some of them changed their minds. A few species of land snake decided the ocean looked better after all. They started spending more time in shallow water. Then they evolved paddle-shaped tails. Then they developed the ability to expel salt from their bodies. Then they figured out how to give birth to live young at sea instead of laying eggs on land. And now, there are over 60 different species of sea snake in the warm waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. They never come ashore. They've forgotten how. They live, hunt, mate and die in the ocean. A land animal that reconquered the sea. The sea snake is what happens when evolution presses the rewind button. Here's the part that surprises most people. Sea snakes are more venomous than land snakes. Far more. Some species of sea snake carry venom that's 10 times more powerful than a cobra's. Drop for drop, the toxins they produce are among the strongest in the entire animal kingdom. A single bite from certain sea snakes contains enough venom to kill several adult humans. Their venom doesn't work the way most snake venoms do. It doesn't destroy tissue. It doesn't cause swelling. It doesn't make you bleed. It does something more sinister. It quietly shuts down communication between your nerves and your muscles. The fish that gets bitten doesn't thrash, doesn't fight, doesn't even appear to be in pain. It just slowly stops moving. Its fins fail. Its tail stops responding. Its respiratory muscles lose coordination. Within minutes, it's completely paralyzed. The sea snake doesn't kill its prey in the traditional sense. It disconnects the prey from itself, like cutting the wires between a control center and the rest of the body. I find that genuinely unsettling. There's something quietly horrible about a venom designed not to wound, but to silence, to switch off, to turn a living animal into a still object. The reef paradise looks the same after a sea snake bite. The water is still clear. The coral is still beautiful. The sun is still shining. It just has one less moving thing in it. So how does a sea snake hunt in a place as beautiful and complex as a coral reef? This is where the design of the warm, shallow reef becomes important. When you look at a reef from above, it seems open, inviting, full of space. But at the actual level of the fish living there, at the level of the snake, it's a maze. Coral branches form vertical walls. Sandy patches form narrow corridors. Overhangs create shadow pockets. Currents push prey towards specific channels. Reefs aren't open spaces. They're labyrinths. And the sea snake's body is, in many ways, the perfect predator for that labyrinth. Long, flexible, slim enough to slip through gaps a fish can't follow into. A paddle-shaped tail for thrust. A body that bends in every direction. Nostrils that close automatically underwater. A lung that runs the entire length of its body, used not just for breathing, but for adjusting buoyancy without effort. The sea snake moves through coral the way a thought moves through your mind. Effortlessly, silently, following every twist and turn of the architecture as if it knows the structure better than the coral does. When it spots a fish, it doesn't chase. It positions. The reef is full of dead ends, cul-de-sacs of coral, corners with no exits. The sea snake knows them. Slowly, it angles its body, moves into the geometry, cuts off escape routes, and then it strikes. In a passage of coral so narrow that the fish can't even turn around fast enough. The bite happens. The venom enters. The fish has nowhere to flee. There's a kind of brutal elegance to it. The reef built itself over thousands of years from tiny coral polyps, adding calcium carbonate to other calcium carbonate. And in doing so, it accidentally created the perfect ambush environment for a sea snake. Beauty and hunting ground, built from the same architecture. Now I want to share something with you that genuinely surprised me when I researched this chapter. Sea snakes are not aggressive toward humans. In fact, and this is documented across decades of marine biology, sea snakes go out of their way to avoid people. When a snorkeler approaches a sea snake, the snake will almost always glide away. Sometimes it'll look at you curiously. Sometimes it'll come closer just to investigate. But it almost never strikes unless it feels physically trapped. A diver in the Indo-Pacific can swim within a meter of a sea snake multiple times a day and never be bitten. The vast majority of human deaths from sea snake bites come from one specific situation: fishermen accidentally catching them in nets and getting bitten while trying to remove them. When a sea snake is tangled in netting, panicked, unable to escape, that's when it lashes out. And those bites are often fatal because the snake injects everything it has when terrified. But in their natural state, swimming freely in a reef, they're some of the calmest predators in the ocean. I love this part of their story because it goes against everything most people assume. The animal carrying the most concentrated venom in the ocean is essentially gentle. It doesn't want to fight. It wants to be left alone. It wants to hunt small fish in peace, breathe air at the surface every 20 minutes, and avoid every other animal larger than it. The worst things in the ocean aren't always the most aggressive. Sometimes they're the most reluctant. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Sea snakes have one critical weakness. They have to breathe air. Unlike fish, which can stay underwater forever, sea snakes still have lungs. They evolved from land animals, remember? They never lost their need to surface for oxygen. Every 20 to 40 minutes, the sea snake has to glide up to the surface, stick its head out, take a breath and submerge again. This is the moment when paradise becomes a real problem for them, because warm, shallow reefs are also where humans are. Boats, propellers, fishing lines, nets, pollution, coastal development. Every time a sea snake surfaces, it's exposed. It's vulnerable. It can be hit by a boat, get tangled in fishing gear, be caught accidentally by trawlers. In some species, populations have declined dramatically over the past few decades, not from direct hunting, but from the simple fact that the warm reef corridors they evolved to live in are also the corridors humans use most. Their air-breathing biology, inherited from their land snake ancestors, is now a critical liability. The deep ocean is too cold for them. The open sea is too vast. They're locked into the same shallow tropical zones that humans claim as paradise. And every year, more of them die in our gear, in our boat traffic, in the slow degradation of the reefs they need to survive. The most venomous animals in the ocean, quietly going extinct in some places, because we share their address. There's something else about sea snakes that I think more people should know. Some species of sea snake form lifelong pair bonds. I'll let that sink in for a second. In certain species, a male and female sea snake will pair up and stay together. They forage in the same area. They surface together. They mate exclusively with each other, year after year. If one of them dies, the other often doesn't take a new mate. Sea snakes, animals we tend to imagine as cold, distant, dangerous reptiles, apparently have devoted partnerships. I don't know how to fully process that emotionally, but every time I learn something new about these animals, they get more interesting, more layered, more worthy of attention. It's hard to call them monsters when you find out they have something resembling marriages. Now, I want to take a step back and look at the broader picture. The warm reef venom corridor is one of those forbidden zones that doesn't look forbidden. There's no darkness, no crushing pressure, no invisible river of plastic. What there is proximity. In this zone, danger is measured in centimeters. The corridors are narrow. The visibility is high. The animals are close. The reef looks open but is actually a series of tight channels where strike distance becomes minimal. This is what makes the warm reef so dangerous as an ecosystem. Not just for sea snakes, for all the smaller animals living there. In the open ocean, you can see predators coming from a long way away. You have time to flee, direction to flee in. In the warm reef, you're in a hallway. You turn a corner, and whatever's around it is right there. The reef is paradise from above and a kill funnel below. The sea snake didn't design that geometry. The reef built itself. But the snake's body, its flexibility, its precision, its venom, is the perfect tool for that geometry. It's like the sea snake and the reef co-evolved to meet each other. The reef created the corridors. The snake learned how to hunt them, and every other small animal that lives in those corridors has to navigate a world where, at any moment, around any coral branch, the geometry might suddenly close in. I want to leave you with a thought. Because this chapter is about more than just sea snakes, it's about how beauty can be a kind of disguise. When we look at the ocean, at coral reefs, at lagoons, at warm, shallow water, we tend to see what's pretty. Bright fish, coral colors, clear water, sunlight refracting through gentle waves. We don't see the geometry beneath. The narrowing corridors, the strike lanes, the hidden architecture of ambush. Most of the ocean's danger doesn't look like danger. The sperm whale dives into a place that obviously looks dangerous, pitch dark, freezing cold, miles below the surface. You'd expect to find a monster there. The cuttlefish hides in chaos that obviously looks chaotic. You'd expect to find an illusionist there. The manta ray feeds in a place that obviously looks like a feeding ground, a literal river of plankton. But the sea snake hides in a place that looks like a postcard. like the cover of a travel magazine, like the place you save up to visit on your honeymoon. And in that postcard, slipping silently between branches of color and beauty, is one of the most venomous animals on Earth. Calm, patient, carrying a chemical arsenal precise enough to switch off a body without leaving a mark. It hopes you don't notice it. It hopes you don't reach toward it. It hopes you'll just pass by and let it go on with its quiet life. Most of the time, that's exactly what happens. But every once in a while, somewhere in those warm corridors, paradise reveals what it actually is. A maze, with teeth. Right now, in a clear, warm lagoon on the other side of the world, a sea snake is gliding silently through a reef channel. It's heading toward the surface. It needs to breathe. In a few seconds, its head will break the water, take a single breath, and submerge again. Above it, somewhere, maybe a snorkeler, a swimmer, a child on a vacation, wearing a snorkel mask, kicking lazily through the warm water. The snorkeler will probably never know the sea snake was there. The sea snake will probably never know the snorkeler was there. Two worlds, same water, different awareness. That's how it usually goes. That's how it should go. And that, in a strange way, is what makes the sea snake one of the most fascinating animals in this entire documentary. Most predators announce themselves, make their power obvious, demand respect through size or aggression. The sea snake doesn't. It carries one of the most lethal weapons in nature, and it spends its life trying to avoid using it. That's a kind of dignity I don't see often in the natural world. Quiet power, reluctant violence, a peaceful predator with the deadliest secret in the warm, shallow corridors of the ocean. The warm reef venom corridor, a forbidden zone wrapped in the most beautiful paradise on Earth. Let me take you somewhere different, far from the warm coral reefs, far from the sunlit lagoons, far from anything you'd want to swim in. I want to take you to the top of the world. The Arctic. Late winter. The sea is frozen, but only in patches. Sheets of ice float on freezing water, drifting with the currents. Wind cuts through the air at temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. This is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Almost nothing lives here. The water is too cold. The air is too cold. The ice is too unstable to walk on. And yet, somewhere out on that fractured ice, there's a sound. Thousands of bodies. Breathing, grunting, bellowing, crammed onto floating platforms barely big enough to hold them. These are walruses. And what's happening up there is something I don't think most people fully appreciate. It's a kind of survival so brutal, so finely balanced, that it almost shouldn't be possible. This is the Ice Edge Crush Zone, a forbidden region where mass and fragility meet, and where the line between safety and disaster is measured in centimeters. A walrus is an enormous animal. Adult males can weigh 1,500 kilograms, females around 800. They are among the largest animals in the Arctic, second only to whales. They look prehistoric. Massive, wrinkled, blubbery bodies, stiff whiskers around their muzzle, and those iconic tusks, long, curved, sharp. Tusks aren't decoration, they're tools. Walruses use them to pull themselves out of freezing water onto floating ice, to anchor themselves on slippery surfaces, to dig clams from the seafloor, to threaten predators, to fight rivals. They are, in a literal sense, ice axes, built into the body of a creature that has spent millions of years adapting to a world made of ice and water. But here's the problem. A walrus needs to rest out of the water, constantly. The Arctic Ocean is so cold that even a walrus, with all that blubber, all that insulation, can't stay submerged forever. After diving for clams, it has to climb out, warm up, recover, breathe in the air without water stealing its body heat. And the only place to do that is the ice. So thousands of walruses across the Arctic gather at the edges of floating ice sheets every single day, crawling out of the freezing water onto unstable platforms, stacking themselves together for warmth. This is the crush zone, and it's one of the most dangerous places in nature. Imagine being a walrus arriving at a haul-out spot. There's already 100 animals there, maybe more. The ice is creaking under their weight. Bodies are pressed against bodies. Tusks scrape against tusks. The platform sags slightly, barely, under the cumulative tonnage. You need to climb up too. The water behind you is killing you slowly. You can't go back down, so you push your way in. You drive your tusks into the ice, heave your body up, force yourself into the mass of warm, breathing flesh. There isn't really room, but you make room. Now multiply that. 1,000 walruses on a single ice floe, sometimes more, each one weighing over a metric ton, all compressed into a few hundred square meters of unstable brine-weakened ice. The math is brutal. A single floe can be supporting 1 million kilograms of walrus, suspended above water that, if it ever fully gives way, will kill any adult within minutes. The ice creaks, bends, cracks form, pressure ridges build along the edges, and nobody can leave, because the water is worse than the ice. This is the trade walruses make, every single day. Now the danger. Walruses are sensitive animals. Despite their size, they spook easily. If something startles a haul-out, a polar bear approaching, a low-flying plane, an unexpected sound, what happens next is one of the most terrifying spectacles in nature. A stampede. 1,000 walruses, weighing a ton each, all panicking at the same time, all trying to get back into the water, all moving in the same direction. Smaller walruses get crushed under larger ones. Calves get trampled. Tusks accidentally injure neighbors. The whole herd surges across the ice in a wave of muscle and ivory, fracturing the floe beneath them. Sometimes the ice breaks under the stampede. Animals fall through, disappear into freezing water in seconds. It's not a calculated retreat. It's blind panic. The same density that kept them warm becomes the thing that crushes them. The crush zone is a cruel paradox. The walruses need to be packed together to survive the cold. But packed together, one moment of fear is all it takes for catastrophe. And here's where the story gets darker. The Arctic is changing, faster than almost any other ecosystem on Earth. Each year the sea ice forms later, breaks up earlier, and covers less area. Some of the floating ice platforms that walruses have depended on for thousands of years are simply gone. When ice disappears, walruses have to haul out somewhere else. Increasingly, that somewhere is land. Beaches, coastal cliffs, rocky shorelines that walruses were never designed to climb. And here, the crush zone becomes even more dangerous. Because beaches don't have the same forgiveness as ice. Ice bends. Ice can fracture and release pressure. Land doesn't move. When walruses pile up on a beach, they pile up against cliffs. They climb on top of each other. They get pushed higher and higher until some of them are hundreds of feet up. And when the inevitable stampede happens, when something spooks the herd, walruses on the cliff edge can't get back down safely. They fall. There have been recorded events of thousands of walruses dying in single stampedes on Arctic beaches, crushed, suffocated, fallen from heights they were never meant to climb. These aren't isolated incidents. They're happening more often, every year. The ice is disappearing. The walruses don't have anywhere else to go. I want to take a moment with that, because it's easy to watch a documentary like this and treat it as entertainment, as something far away, something not really our problem. But the walrus crush zone is one of the most direct examples of climate change killing animals in real time. These are not predators eating each other. These are not natural events that have been happening for millions of years. These are deaths caused, directly, measurably, by the disappearance of the ice platforms walruses need to survive. Walruses didn't change. The ocean did. We changed it. And now we're watching year by year as the consequences play out across the Arctic. Despite all of this, there's something I find beautiful about walruses. They are intensely social. Walruses spend almost all of their time in groups. They communicate constantly,
through grunts, bells, clicks, and underwater sounds that can carry for kilometers. Mothers and calves recognize each other's voices from a long distance. Bulls have individual vocalizations they use during courtship. Walruses in haul-out groups touch each other constantly, not just for warmth but for connection. They are gentle despite their size. They prefer company. They suffer when isolated. And they have been doing this, sharing the ice edge, crowding together, breathing into each other's warmth for millions of years. The crush zone isn't just dangerous geometry. It's also a kind of ancient ritual, a coming together of giants in one of the most hostile places on the planet. A community that has survived ice ages, climate shifts, and human exploitation, and is still here, hauling out together every spring. For now. Right now, on a piece of drifting ice somewhere in the Arctic, hundreds of walruses are lying side by side. Steam rises from their wet bodies. The ice creaks gently beneath them. The water below is freezing and black. Most of them will survive. Most of them have learned the geometry of the crush zone, where to lie, when to move, who to lie next to. But somewhere out there, every season, the ice will give way, or the herd will spook, or a beach will become a death trap. The walruses will keep coming back. They have to. They have nowhere else to go. This is what survival looks like in the high Arctic. Not glamorous, not graceful, not the dramatic hunts of warmer oceans. Just thousands of animals, pressed together on melting ice, doing the only thing they've ever known how to do, and hoping the platform holds for one more day. I want you to picture a coastline, not a peaceful sandy beach, not a tropical lagoon. I want you to picture a place where the open ocean slams into vertical black rock. Massive waves rolling in from thousands of kilometers of open sea, hitting cliffs at full force. Whitewater exploding 10 meters into the air. Spray, foam, chaos. This is the surf line of a rocky coastline. And to most animals, including humans, this is one of the most violent natural environments on Earth. Stand on those rocks during a big swell and you would not survive 30 seconds. The waves are powerful enough to crush bone. The backwash is powerful enough to drag you out to sea. The rocks themselves are sharp enough to tear skin on contact. It's the kind of place that, if you fell into it, you would die. Almost guaranteed. And yet, every single day, there are animals that walk right into this chaos. Voluntarily. Repeatedly. As part of their normal life. Seals. Animals that look soft. Curious. Almost playful in aquariums and beach photos. The kind of animal you'd never associate with extreme survival. But in reality, the seal lives at one of the most dangerous interfaces in nature, the place where the ocean ends and land begins. And what they do there, every single day of their lives, is something I find genuinely incredible. Let me explain why the surf line is so dangerous. When a wave travels across the open ocean, it's not really moving water. It's moving energy. The water itself stays roughly in place, but the energy travels for thousands of kilometers, gaining force from wind and distance. When that energy hits shallow seabed, something violent happens. The bottom of the wave slows down. The top of the wave keeps moving forward. And eventually gravity wins. The wave collapses on itself in a massive vertical detonation. This is what we call breaking. And on a rocky coastline, it's brutal. A breaking wave hitting solid rock doesn't dissipate gently like it does on a sandy beach. It explodes. The water has nowhere to go, so it shoots back outward in unpredictable directions, colliding with the next incoming wave, doubling the force, creating chaotic backwash that can crush, drag, or smash anything caught in it. This zone, this thin band where the ocean meets the rocks, is called the surf gauntlet, and seals have to cross it every single day. Here's what most people don't realize. Seals are built for water, really built for water. Streamlined bodies, powerful flippers, layers of insulating blubber. They can dive hundreds of meters, hold their breath for over 20 minutes, swim faster than most fish. But they're not just sea animals, they're amphibious. Seals need to come ashore, constantly, to rest, to breed, to molt, to give birth, to nurse their young, to escape predators in the water. So while they look perfectly designed for the ocean, they also have to be designed for the shore. The problem is, between the ocean and the shore lies the surf gauntlet. And every single haul-out, every single feeding trip, every single return to dry land means another crossing through that violent zone. A seal might cross the surf gauntlet hundreds of times in a year, thousands of times in a lifetime. And each crossing, each one, is a high-risk gamble. I want to walk you through what a single crossing actually looks like. Because once you understand this, you start to realize the seal is one of the most skilled wave readers on Earth. A female seal approaches the rocks from offshore. Her pup is waiting somewhere above the tide line, hungry, vulnerable, alone. She has to get back to it, but she can't just swim straight in. The waves are breaking against the cliffs in massive walls. If she enters at the wrong moment, she'll be slammed against the rock with the full force of an ocean swell. So she waits. She hovers in the deeper water just beyond the break zone. Her head is up. Her whiskers are spread wide. Now here's something most people don't know. A seal's whiskers are not decorative. They're some of the most sensitive sensory organs in the animal kingdom. Seal whiskers can detect water movement so faint that a seal can follow the trail of a fish that swam past minutes earlier, through water in total darkness. In the surf zone, those whiskers do something else. They read the rhythm of the waves. The seal is feeling in real time the pulse of the ocean, wave intervals, energy levels, the pattern of incoming swells. Waves don't come randomly. They come in sets. A series of large waves, followed by a brief lull, followed by another set. The seal is waiting for the lull. When the moment comes, she goes. She doesn't swim with the wave. She uses it. She times her entry to ride the back of an incoming swell, accelerating toward a specific crack between the rocks. The wave lifts her body, carries her forward, and just as the water reaches its highest point against the cliff, she launches herself onto the rocks. Claws scrape stone, muscles tense. Her body heaves upward in one continuous motion. She has less than a second, because the moment the wave starts retreating, the backwash will try to drag her back into the ocean. That returning water has nearly the same force as the incoming wave. If she's too slow, she gets ripped back off the rocks and slammed sideways, possibly into another rock, possibly straight back into the next breaking wave. This is the most dangerous moment. But she's done it before, hundreds of times. She knows this exact crack between these exact rocks. She remembers which crevice has the best grip, which surface to push off from, how long the safe window lasts. She makes it. A second later, she's on the rocks, breathing hard, her pup squirming toward her. The next wave explodes behind her, exactly where her body was moments ago. The crossing is complete. She'll have to do it again in a few hours. Now, I want to share something that I think a lot of people miss about seals. They're not just surviving this gauntlet, they're masters of it. Watch experienced seals navigate a rocky coastline, and you start to realize they're doing something almost impossible to describe in words. They're reading water at a level our species can barely imagine. Surfers spend their entire lives trying to read waves. The best surfers in the world train for decades to time their movements with the rhythm of the ocean. Seals do it from instinct, from the first weeks of life, with sensory equipment we don't have, in water far more violent than anything humans surf in. A seal can predict the exact moment a wave will break by reading vibration through its whiskers, light refraction through its eyes, and pressure through its body, all simultaneously, in real time, under conditions that would terrify any human. And here's the most striking part. They use the gauntlet defensively. In open water, a great white shark or an orca can chase a seal down. The seal is fast, but predators that big are faster over distance. So when a seal is being chased, where does it flee? Into the gauntlet, straight into the white water, straight into the chaos. straight into the zone where the predator's larger body becomes a liability and its hunting precision breaks down. In the surf, sharks struggle to maintain control. Their bodies aren't designed for the turbulence. Their senses get overwhelmed. But the seal thrives there. The same place that would kill almost anything else becomes a sanctuary the moment the seal enters it. It's one of the most elegant defensive tricks in nature. The seal uses the most dangerous water in the ocean as a shield, but the gauntlet is unforgiving to those who don't yet know its language. Pups are born on land. They have to learn the surf. Imagine being a baby seal, a few weeks old, soft, round, innocent. Your mother is suddenly leading you toward this terrifying wall of crashing water. Some pups don't make it. Their first attempts at crossing the surf go wrong. They get rolled by waves they can't predict, tossed against rocks they can't avoid, separated from their mothers in chaos they can't navigate. This is one of the harshest realities of seal life. Many young seals die in their first year. Not from predators, not from cold, not from starvation, from the gauntlet itself. But the ones who survive, who learn to read the rhythm, become some of the most agile, most adaptive animals on Earth. By the time they're adults, they cross the surf line as easily as you walk through a doorway. Survival here isn't just luck. It's literacy. Seals are fluent in a language of water that almost nothing else on this planet can read. There's something else I want you to think about. The surf line isn't just dangerous in one moment. It's dangerous constantly. The waves never stop. Storms come and go. Tides rise and fall. The coastline reshapes itself year after year as rocks erode and ledges collapse. Seals have to keep adapting. Their entire colony depends on knowing this specific patch of coastline, these specific rocks, these specific haul-out spots, this specific timing of waves. Older seals in a colony serve as memory for the group. They remember which rocks have collapsed since last year, which ledges have become unsafe, which entry points are still viable. When an experienced seal leads younger ones through a crossing, that's not just biology. That's knowledge transfer. Generational wisdom passed from one seal to the next. Without that knowledge, the colony would lose far more pups every year. With it, the gauntlet becomes navigable. Even in chaos this extreme, there's still community, still learning, still continuity. That, to me, is something quietly beautiful. The surf gauntlet is one of the strangest forbidden zones on Earth. It's not vast like the deep sea. It's not invisible like the Cuttlefish's reef flat. It's not far from civilization. Most of the surf zones where seals haul out are within sight of coastal towns. People drive past them, hike near them, sometimes even swim near them. But to almost every animal on Earth, and to humans without a wetsuit and a death wish, the surf line is a violent, lethal corridor. To seals, it's a doorway, a daily commute, a sanctuary, a nursery, a battlefield where they've evolved to outperform every other creature on Earth. They don't dominate the gauntlet through size, or strength, or aggression. They dominate it through fluency. By becoming so attuned to the rhythm of breaking waves that they can read what we can only experience as chaos. The gauntlet is a place where you have to be fluent in turbulence to survive. And the seal, soft, gentle, beautiful, blubbery seal, is one of the most fluent turbulence readers on this planet. Right now, somewhere along a wild coastline, maybe in California, maybe in Scotland, maybe on a windswept island in the South Pacific, a seal is approaching the surf gauntlet. She's been hunting offshore for hours. Her body is tired. Her stomach is full. Her pup is waiting on a ledge above the rocks. She hovers in the deep water just beyond the break. Her head lifts. Her whiskers spread wide. She reads the ocean, the rhythm, the timing, the moment. And when the lull comes, she goes. She's done this 1,000 times. She'll do it 1,000 more. A small, soft body, threading itself through walls of water and stone, in a place where almost nothing else survives. The surf gauntlet, a forbidden zone hidden in plain sight. right there on the edge of every coastline, right at the boundary between two worlds, and the seal, quietly, gracefully, daily, crossing it as if it were nothing. I want you to imagine something genuinely uncomfortable. You're underwater, but you can't see anything. Not because it's dark. There's light above you somewhere, but it's diffused, broken, scattered. You can vaguely tell which way is up, but that's about it. The water around you is thick, not with creatures, with particles, silt, mud, suspended organic matter, tiny pieces of dead leaves, microorganisms, sediment churned up from below. Every direction you look, you see the same thing. A brown, swirling haze. Visibility is maybe a few centimeters in front of your face. You can't see what's coming. You can't see what's below you. You can't even see your own hand. This is the Murk chamber. It exists in slow rivers, swamps, floodplains, estuaries, anywhere water moves slowly enough that sediment hangs suspended. Some of these zones cover hundreds of kilometers. Some are tiny pockets along the bottom of a lake. But they all share one thing in common. Vision doesn't work here. For almost every fish in the world, this kind of environment is a sensory nightmare. They evolved to hunt with their eyes, to navigate with their eyes, to detect danger with their eyes. In the Murk chamber, all of that becomes useless. And yet, in this zone of liquid blindness, there's an animal that doesn't just survive, it rules. The catfish. A creature that has, over millions of years, become one of the most sensorily strange animals on Earth. Let me explain why. Most predators rely on sight. Sharks, tuna, barracuda, even most reef fish. Their entire hunting strategy is built around being able to see their prey. In the Murk chamber, that strategy collapses immediately. So the catfish did something extraordinary. It abandoned sight as a primary sense and replaced it with something else entirely. Taste, smell, touch. A catfish's body is essentially a giant moving tongue. Look at one closely, and you'll see those long, whisker-like appendages around its mouth. These are called barbels, and they're not whiskers. They're not decorations. Each barbel is covered in tens of thousands of taste buds. Some catfish species have so many taste buds across their entire bodies that they can essentially taste their environment by touching it. Read that again. A catfish doesn't just have taste buds on its tongue. It has them on its head, on its body, along its sides, on its tail. If you put a catfish in a glass of sugar water, its entire body would register the sweetness, not by absorbing it, by tasting it. A large catfish has roughly 175,000 taste buds across its whole body, compared to about 10,000 on a human tongue. Think about what that means. The catfish is, in a real sense, tasting the water around it, constantly, with every part of its body, building a chemical map of its environment that has nothing to do with what its eyes can see. In the Murk chamber, where vision dies, the catfish's whole body becomes a sensor. And here's where it gets even more strange. Catfish can detect the chemical signature of their prey from astonishing distances. A small fish in distress releases stress hormones into the water. Trace amounts. Almost nothing. A catfish can taste those hormones from a long way away. It follows the chemical gradient, the faint trail of stress released into the water, until it arrives at the source. It's hunting by taste. In darkness so thick that no other sense would work. Imagine if you could taste fear in a room. Imagine if, just by walking through a building, you could sense exactly which corner held a frightened animal, purely from the chemicals dissolved in the air. That's the catfish's reality, every minute of its life. But that's only part of the catfish's sensory toolkit. It also has one of the most refined lateral line systems in any fish. Tiny sensors along its sides that detect vibration, pressure, water movement. Any disturbance in the water column registers as data. Some catfish species can detect a frog hopping into water from many meters away, just from the pressure wave the splash creates. And And this is the genuinely wild part. Certain catfish species can also detect electric fields. Yes, like sharks. In murky water where prey is buried in mud, a catfish can sense the electrical activity of a hidden fish's nervous system, the faint pulse of its heartbeat, the signal of its muscle contractions. The prey thinks it's safe under the silt. It's invisible, camouflaged. But to the catfish, it's lit up. So picture this. You're a small fish in a murky river. You can't see the catfish coming. The water is too thick. The catfish can't see you either, but it's tasting the chemicals you release, feeling the vibrations of your movement, detecting the electrical signature of your heartbeat. It's hunting you with 3 completely different sensory systems at once. Your only defense is stillness. Don't move. Don't breathe too hard. Don't release any stress chemistry into the water. But staying perfectly still in flowing water is basically impossible. Eventually you twitch. You shift. Your body produces something the catfish can detect. And then a mouth opens out of the murk. And you're gone before you ever knew anything was there. There's something I find quietly fascinating about the catfish. It's not an animal that humans typically admire. It's slow. It's bottom-dwelling. It eats whatever it can find. It looks slightly prehistoric. We don't put catfish on aquarium posters or wildlife magazine covers. But the catfish is one of the most successful fish lineages on Earth. There are over 3,000 species of catfish, making them one of the largest fish families in existence. They live on every continent except Antarctica. They've colonized rivers, lakes, swamps, estuaries, and even some saltwater environments. And here's the part most people don't know. Some catfish are massive. The Mekong giant catfish can reach 3 meters in length and weigh over 300 kilograms. That's a freshwater fish the size of a small car, living in murky rivers, hunting by taste and vibration. There are stories, some confirmed, some legendary, of giant catfish in major rivers around the world pulling small animals into the water. Catfish are not just little bottom feeders. Some of them are apex predators of their entire ecosystems. In the murk chamber, they aren't prey. They are the kings of the murk. Now I want to share something I think is genuinely important. Murky water is not a degraded environment. It's not dirty water. It's not pollution. Murky water is a normal, natural state for many ecosystems. The Amazon, the Mississippi, the Mekong. Most large, slow-moving rivers in the world are naturally murky. They've been murky for millions of years. This is the natural habitat of a huge percentage of the world's freshwater fish. But here's where humans come in. We've started altering sediment levels in rivers worldwide. Through deforestation, when trees are cut down, soil washes into rivers in much higher volumes than before. Through dam construction, which traps sediment behind walls and starves downstream ecosystems. Through pollution, which adds chemicals to the water that bind to sediment and poison the bottom dwellers. Catfish, adapted to murk for millions of years, now face a different kind of murk, one we created. Heavier, dirtier, toxic. Many catfish species are now declining, especially the giants. Their numbers are dropping across most major rivers on Earth. We are slowly degrading the very environment they evolved to thrive in. And here's the cruel irony. By removing the natural murk of rivers, by changing their sediment cycles, by industrializing waterways, we are not just hurting catfish, we are also degrading the nurseries of countless other fish that grow up in murky water for protection. The murk chamber isn't just a hunting ground. It's a shield, protecting young fish from visual predators that would otherwise eat them. When we change the murk, we change everything. There's one more thing about catfish I want to share before we close this chapter. A lot of catfish, particularly males, are extraordinarily devoted parents. In many species, the male catfish builds a nest, guards the eggs, fans them with his fins to keep oxygen flowing through the water around them, refuses to eat for days, sometimes weeks, defends the eggs from any threat that approaches. When the eggs hatch, he protects the babies for as long as he can, sometimes even letting them swim into his mouth for safety when danger appears, then releasing them once it passes. In some catfish species,
The father literally carries his babies in his mouth until they're old enough to survive on their own. Think about that. A creature most of us picture as a slimy bottom feeder is one of the most devoted fathers in the entire animal kingdom. It's a reminder, again, that the animals we overlook are often the ones with the deepest stories. The catfish isn't ugly. It isn't simple. It isn't a low form of life. It's a creature that survives in liquid blindness through senses we don't have. Parents its young with care that humans would recognize, and shapes entire river ecosystems through its quiet bottom feeding. It just doesn't demand our attention, so we miss it. Right now, somewhere in a slow brown river. Maybe the Amazon, maybe the Mississippi, maybe some unnamed waterway in Southeast Asia. A catfish is moving along the bottom in total visual darkness. Its eyes barely register the gloom around it, but its body is alive with information. Taste buds scanning the chemistry of the water, whiskers brushing through sediment, lateral line sensing the faintest vibration, electrical receptors picking up on the heartbeats of hidden prey. It moves slowly, patiently, reading a world we can't perceive. In a few minutes, somewhere in the murk, something will twitch. A small fish, a crayfish, a frog, any creature that releases the wrong chemical signature into the water. And without warning, out of the gloom, a mouth will open. The murk chamber claims another life, quietly, in darkness, with no witness. The most successful predator in one of Earth's most overlooked forbidden zones, the catfish. A reminder that the strangest survival strategies on this planet aren't always in the deep ocean. Sometimes they're swimming through the muddy river that flows right through your nearest town. You just can't see them. You never could. Let me end this documentary the way I think we should end it. In a small, quiet place. Not the deep abyss. Not the cold Arctic. Not the murky river. A small, dark crack in a coral reef. A simple shadowed hole in the rocks, maybe 2 meters wide, maybe 3 meters deep. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. To you and me, it looks like a hiding spot, a cave, a refuge, the kind of place a small fish would naturally swim into if it were scared. That's exactly what makes it the final forbidden zone of this video, because in the ocean, the places that look safest are often the places where you have nowhere left to run. This is the Reef Cave Dead End, and it's owned by one of the most quietly dangerous predators on the reef, the grouper. Most people don't think of groupers as scary. They look like big, slow, slightly grumpy fish. Round bodies, wide mouths, often hanging motionless in caves while divers swim past and take photos. But here's what most people miss. The grouper has perfected one of the most brutal hunting strategies in the entire ocean. It doesn't chase. It doesn't pursue. It doesn't even really move most of the time. It just owns a room. A single grouper will claim a specific cave or overhang as its territory, and it will stay there, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. The same cave, the same patch of reef, the same dark corner. It becomes part of the architecture. The cave is no longer just a cave, it's a trap. And every fish that swims into that cave, thinking it's safe, is walking into the grouper's living room. Here's how the trap works. A small fish, let's say a wrasser, is swimming along the reef. Something startles it. Maybe a passing shark, maybe a barracuda. The wrasser darts for cover. It sees a dark crack in the coral. A cave, shadow, stillness, safety. It bolts inside. What it doesn't know, what its eyes haven't had time to adjust to, is that the cave is already occupied. The grouper is there, pressed flat against the wall, its mottled skin matching the texture of the rock, its body completely still, its mouth slightly open, waiting. The wrasse hovers in the dim light. Its eyes are still adjusting from the bright water outside. For a few seconds, it cannot see clearly. The grouper, already acclimated to the dark, can see perfectly. Then the cave wall lunges.
The grouper opens its enormous mouth in less than 1/10 of a second. A vacuum forms inside the cave. Water and the wrasse gets sucked into the grouper's mouth with a force that the wrasser has no time to resist. In a tiny enclosed space like a reef cave, that suction is incredibly powerful. There's nowhere for the water to go. No open ocean to disperse the force. The cave itself amplifies the strike. The wrasser disappears. Silt drifts. The cave goes still. To anyone passing by, the grouper looks like a rock again. Nothing happened. The cave is empty. Except it's not. This is why the reef cave is so quietly terrifying. Open ocean predators have to commit to their attack. They have to chase. They have to expose themselves. They have to spend energy. A small, fast fish has a real chance of escaping. The grouper doesn't have any of those problems. It doesn't move. It doesn't expose itself. It doesn't waste energy. It just lets the geometry of the cave do the work. Because once a small fish enters a confined space, its escape options collapse. There's only one way out, the same direction it came in. And if the grouper is between the fish and that exit, the fish is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. There's something even more chilling about this. Groupers can grow huge. The Goliath grouper, one of the largest species, can reach over 2 meters in length and weigh more than 360 kilograms. That's a fish the size of a small bear, living in a cave, waiting motionless for whatever swims in. When a Goliath grouper strikes, the sound of the suction is so powerful it can be heard from a great distance underwater, like a deep, booming thud that travels through the reef. Divers have described it as feeling the pressure wave in their chest. A creature that doesn't need to roar to terrify the ocean. It just opens its mouth. Now here's the part I think is genuinely beautiful, and it ties everything in this video together. The reef cave is, on its surface, one of the most appealing looking places in the ocean. Cool, shaded, calm. Coral encrusting every surface. Tiny fish flickering in beams of refracted sunlight. Soft sand on the floor. It's the kind of place that looks like sanctuary. That's exactly why small fish enter it. That's exactly why it works as a trap. The most dangerous places in the ocean, the truly forbidden zones, are rarely the obvious ones. The deep abyss looks terrifying because it is terrifying. The Arctic ice looks dangerous because it is dangerous. But the reef cave? The reef cave looks inviting, and that's its weapon. It's a forbidden zone disguised as shelter. There's also something I want to make sure to mention. Groupers are not stupid fish. Some grouper species are known to actively recruit moray eels for cooperative hunting. I mentioned this in a previous documentary. When a grouper sees prey escape into a tight crack it can't fit into, it will literally swim up to a moray eel, perform a specific head-shaking signal, and the eel will follow it back to the prey, dig into the crack, flush the prey out, and the grouper waits to catch it in open water. Two completely different species, communicating, coordinating, sharing the spoils. The grouper is one of the few non-mammal predators on Earth known to recruit another species for help. It's not just a brute waiting in a cave. It's a strategist. It understands its own limitations. It knows which holes it can't fit into. It knows which other species can. And it has built a working partnership with one of them. This is intelligence at a level most people never associate with reef fish. But like every animal in this documentary, there's a darker side to the grouper's story. Groupers are in trouble. Their sight fidelity, the very thing that makes them powerful hunters in their caves, also makes them extremely vulnerable to overfishing. A grouper that lives in the same cave for years is incredibly easy to catch. Spear fishermen know exactly where to find them. Year after year, generation after generation. In some parts of the world, large groupers have nearly disappeared from reefs they once dominated. And losing the grouper isn't just losing one species. The grouper is a keystone predator. By regulating populations of mid-level reef fish, it stabilizes entire ecosystems. Without groupers, reef fish populations can spiral out of balance. Coral health declines. Algae overgrows. The whole reef starts to fall apart. In trying to remove the predator, We end up destabilizing the predator's prey, the prey's prey, and the entire system underneath. Once again, the ocean reminds us that everything is connected. You can't pull one thread without unraveling the whole fabric. So that's the 8th and final zone. The Reef Cave, Dead End. A small, quiet, beautiful-looking place. One of the most peaceful corners of any coral reef. The kind of spot a snorkeler would point at and call gorgeous. And inside it, waiting in stillness, a creature that has built its entire life around a single, brutal truth. The places that look safe are not always safe. The places that promise shelter sometimes are the danger. Let me take a moment, before we close this video, to bring everything together. We started in the deep ocean abyss, a vertical column of crushing pressure and total darkness where almost nothing survives, except a giant whale that hunts squid by sound. We moved to the reef flat, a bright, sunlit zone where chaos in light makes invisibility possible, and a cuttlefish becomes the master of illusion. We traveled to the Plankton funnel, invisible rivers of life in the open ocean, where the manta ray glides through one of the most ephemeral feasts on Earth. We slipped into the warm reef venom corridor, a paradise on the surface, a maze of tight strike lanes underneath, where a quiet sea snake carries the most potent venom in the sea. We climbed onto the ice edge crush zone, a frozen platform where mass and fragility meet, where walruses survive by pressing into each other while the world melts around them. We crashed through the surf gauntlet, where the ocean meets the rocks in explosive violence, and seals navigate the chaos with sensory skill humans can barely imagine. We sank into the Murk chamber, a liquid darkness where vision fails, where the catfish has built an entire sensory life from taste, vibration, and electricity. And we end here, in the Reef Cave Dead End, a small dark room where geometry itself becomes a weapon, and the group awaits in silence for the next fish that mistakes shelter for safety. 8 forbidden zones, 8 completely different ways of being dangerous, and 8 different animals that don't just survive in those zones, they belong in them. Here's what I want to leave you with. The ocean isn't one place, it's thousands of places, each one with its own laws, its own rules, its own architecture of danger and possibility. We've spent this video looking at the zones that almost no living thing can enter. The forbidden corridors, the death funnels, the dead ends. But every one of these places, every single one, has been colonized by something. There is no environment on this planet so hostile that life hasn't found a way in. Pressure that would crush you, cold that would kill you, darkness that would blind you, geometry that would trap you. And yet, somewhere in each of those zones, there's an animal, quietly, patiently, doing what evolution shaped it to do. That's the deepest truth of the ocean. Life doesn't just survive in the harshest places. Life masters them. If you made it all the way through this video, thank you. Genuinely. Long-form documentaries like this take weeks to put together. Knowing that someone actually watched it from beginning to end means more than you can imagine. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. Subscribe to Marine Planet. There's a lot more coming. Drop a comment below telling me which forbidden zone surprised you the most. I read every single one. And if you'd like to help me keep making documentaries like this, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. Until next time, take care. And remember, the ocean has its own rules. The sooner we understand them, the better we'll be at sharing this planet with the creatures that already do. Marine Planet.